We usually think that once a suspect is in custody, the violence stops. They are supposed to be safe. But for these 6 individuals, the police station wasn't a shelter. It was a torture chamber. Laye Alama Condé. Let's start in Germany, December 2004. Laye Alama Condé is sitting in a police station, terrified. Police suspected he was a drug dealer who had swallowed cocaine packets to hide the evidence. Instead of waiting for nature to take its course, they called a doctor to force the drugs out immediately. They pinned him down and jammed a long tube through his nose, aiming for his stomach to pump in emetics. Laye fought back hard. He kept swallowing his own vomit. In the chaos, the liquid went down the wrong pipe. They didn't stop. They repeated it until foam spilled from his mouth and he collapsed. He never woke up. 10 days later, he died in a coma. The cause? Cerebral hypoxia. Basically, his brain starved of oxygen because he had drowned in his own vomit while being held down by law enforcement. This wasn't an accident. It was a system. Over 1,000 people had been forced to vomit in that city alone. The European court eventually ruled this as torture. The penalty? The doctor paid a mere 20,000 euros to the family. Abdul Wali. Next, let's go to Afghanistan. Abdul Wali, a 28-year-old farmer, did something surprisingly brave. He turned himself into a US base to prove he was innocent of a rocket attack. He thought he would clear his name. Instead, he met David Passaro, a CIA contractor who had no interest in talking. Witnesses said Passaro kicked Wali in the groin so hard with combat boots that his body actually lifted off the ground. He slammed a heavy metal flashlight into Wali's arms and legs over and over for 2 nights. The beating was so brutal, it shattered his pelvis. He couldn't even urinate. The pain was absolute torture. By the 2nd night, Wali stopped begging for mercy. He started begging to be killed just to end it. On the 4th day, he got his wish. He died in custody. The initial report lied and said heart attack. Passaro was the first post-9/11 CIA figure convicted, but his sentence? Only about 6.5 years. If an autopsy had been done sooner, it might have been murder. Instead, Wali died for a crime he likely didn't commit. Darren Rainey, Florida. Darren Rainey, a 50-year-old schizophrenic man serving a short sentence for cocaine possession. One night, guards locked him in a special shower. The controls were rigged. He couldn't turn the water off. The water blasting down wasn't warm. It was 160 degrees Fahrenheit, near boiling point. He was trapped in that scalding steam box for almost 2 hours. He begged. He screamed. Then, silence. When they opened the door, Rainey was dead. His body was covered in severe burns. The heat was so intense that when paramedics touched him, his skin simply peeled away. Photos showed bruises on his hands. He had spent his final moments pounding on the door, trying to escape the boiling water. Unbelievably, the medical examiner called it an accident. They blamed his heart and ignored the torture. The family sued and got $4.5 million. But the guards? No criminal charges. They walked free. Dilawar. Dilawar was just a young taxi driver trying to make a living. He picked up 3 passengers. Big mistake. At a checkpoint, soldiers found a broken walkie-talkie. Without evidence, they decided he was a terrorist. At Bagram Detention Center, they chained his wrists to the ceiling. He was left hanging for days until his shoulders dislocated. But the worst part was the perineal strikes. Soldiers kneed him in the legs, aiming for the nerve over 100 times. His legs were destroyed. Doctors later said the tissue was pulpified. Even if he lived, they would have been amputated. After 4 days of this, his heart gave out. When a medic finally checked him, Dilawar was already gone. A leaked document revealed the truth. Homicide. He wasn't sick, he was beaten to death. And he was completely innocent. Nicolas Contreras. Nicolas Contreras was only 16. He was sent to an Arizona boot camp to fix his life. Instead, he found hell. He had asthma and a severe infection. He was vomiting, feverish, and struggling to breathe. But the staff didn't care. They called him a faker and a baby. They even stopped him from using his inhaler. The humiliation was total. He lost control of his bowels, so they made him eat his meals sitting on a toilet. They forced him to do push-ups over a trash can filled with his own soiled clothes. When he collapsed, they put him in a wheelbarrow and mocked him. They forced him to make siren noises like an ambulance. His body finally quit. When ordered to get up one last time, his final word was simply no. Investigators found 32 acts of abuse. Yet thanks to legal loopholes, most of the staff walked away unpunished. Saydnaya. Finally, we arrive at Saydnaya prison in Syria. It is known by a terrifying name, the human slaughterhouse. New arrivals faced the welcome party. They were dragged off trucks and beaten viciously with cables and metal pipes for hours. Guards used the flying carpet, strapping prisoners to boards and bending them backward until their joints tore apart. Survival was torture. Food was sometimes mixed with blood and water was tainted with urine. There were trials, but they were a joke. Groups of 50 were sentenced to death in hearings that lasted seconds. They were led to underground chambers and hanged en masse. Up to 13,000 people were executed in just 4 years. To hide the evidence of mass killings, the government used salt rooms to store bodies and even built a crematorium to burn them. Survivors who were eventually freed had been kept in total darkness for so long, many had forgotten their own names.